Good to see you, Brad. Hope you're feeling better, mate. Turn on your Twitter. Turn on your Twitter audience.
That is what I'm doing right now.
Let's get them out there on the Saturday morning. All those people on Twitter. Mate, it's one of my favourite NFL weekends. The intro decided just to play it again. One of my favourite NFL weekends because the clocks change. We get an hour extra in bed tomorrow. And the action starts a bit earlier for us in the UK and Ireland, 5 o'clock. So that's always a fun one. Good week last week, mate. Yeah, so we get games at 5 o'clock and 8 o'clock. So it's great.
Sweet, great.
Good week for you last week. 3 out of 3 for you, mate. 3 out of 5 for me. 6 out of 8 in total. Best bets were up again. Good to see it. Let's kick things off. You've got a touchdown score to get us going for the week. We're a bit later on Saturday, but if you're in the Telegram group, you know that Brad was feeling a bit poorly yesterday, so we're just going to do it on Saturday morning instead. Mark moved a small bit on this one as well, mate. Tyreek Hill, anytime touchdown scorer. He's been anonymous the last few weeks. I actually put him up there last week thinking even against the Colts off our defense, we might see some action, but Tua's back, and so is Tyreek.
Yeah, I'm looking at his game log now. What did he get last week? Like two targets, 1 reception. That's not ideal. Yeah. But he did run 100% of the routes. He did run 28 routes and 28 dropbacks. So why do we like this? Yeah, one is I like the Dolphins' offense. Like the key to the Dolphins' offense is, do they get pressured, or is the opposing defensive line going to pressure them? And the Arizona Cardinals, 31st ranked DL by Brandon Thorne, and they lost Dennis Gardecki there. Is that their best player, basically? Dennis Gardecki? Is that right? Sounds right.
You pronounce it right, isn't it?
Yeah. They lost him recently, so that very low chance of getting any pressure, basically. Tyreek is lined up directly opposite a corner who is ranked by PFF 104 out of 106 corners. Tyreek's given interviews in the week saying like he nearly cried because he had Tua back at practice and how good it feels. He's telling everyone to start me in fantasy this week. So I feel like the Dolphins are a good bet to go over their team total, but we've missed that price a little bit. It's moved 24.5. You could have bet sort of evens earlier in the week. It's now about minus 115. So I quite like just pivoting to Tyreek to get in the end zone. I feel like it should be odds.
You would think, though, like you can understand why he's wanted to cry. He had Snoop Huntley, he had Skylar Thompson, and Tim Boyle. So that's been the 3 guys that have attempted to throw him a pass this year. So it's been pretty bad. I honestly just thought that Snoop might actually get something, but they actually didn't even target him or Waddle till later in the game. I even thought when playing a bit of catch-up that surely would open up. They just couldn't get the ball down the field. So, look, hopefully to post these concussions will be okay. That's a conversation for a different day.
Interestingly enough, the Dolphins did actually win that game against the Colts last week on adjusted scores.
Yeah.
So, like, even with how dreadful they were still better than the Colts, which I don't know, should maybe inform how you think about the Colts going forward.
Yeah, Dolphins obviously still got a pulse as well in the AFC. Still pretty wide open in that division. Buffalo aren't bomb-proof by any means. Tight end I want to talk about first of all. There's going to be a bit of a team throughout this recording this morning with tight ends. Cade Otton in the Falcons-Bucs games. So I think the Bucs are 2.5-point dogs at home. And if you didn't see the injury news during the week, you're probably wondering why that line is. Mike Evans is out for this until week 11, I think, and Chris Godwin is done for the season, which is a major disappointment. One of my favorite guys to be betting on this year. So there's a bit of a deficiency in Bucs receiving core, but I think a likely benefactor of this, and it already kind of came to pass against the Ravens, who are notoriously poor against the tight ends, is Cade Otton. And even last week, even since week 3, he's drawing 19% target share, even with those 2 big guys in that lineup, those 2 almost like alpha receivers. And he's getting just under an 18% first read target share from Baker as well. So his line here is 45 plus receiving yards. You can back it at 182 with our good friends at Matchbook. And I think he is a good play this week against a kind of a middle of the road Atlanta secondary. So they're giving up, I think in the league in total, they're 16th in giving up receiving yards to the tight end position. So Cade Otton at 1.82. I think you look at the rest of that Bucs receiving core, Sterling Shepard, the rookie McLaughlin, Trey Palmer, are not very good. I don't believe that. Maybe one or two of them might shine at different points, but I think Baker will look for Otton. I'm not going to say Otton is like a premier tight end in this league, but I think he'll do enough to get to 50 or 60 or in a potential shootout against the Falcons. Any thoughts on that game, man?
Our man Brandon Thorne had the Bucs offensive line as one of the biggest mismatches of the week against the Falcons defensive line. But I mean, I've not got involved personally. I ain't good for your bet, but I hate betting on teams without their wide receivers. It seems like it happens every week, and we're like, they can overcome it, but I feel like they never can. So you're right. Like Baker's got one target he trusts, and he's shown that. So I think you got a nice bet.
Potentially, and the market may adjust. I didn't really see a receptions line here, but for Rashad White as well, I could see him. I know we backed him. I backed him this season and last season, but Bucky Irving has taken over a lot of the carries and the rushing work in the backfield. But he could be used a lot more, even more than he normally is in terms of the receiving out the backfield. And he's also kind of lined up in the slot on a few occasions this season and last. So they're just very thin there. So if you get a line of 3.5 receptions or something like that for Rashad White, I'd be looking to that to the over. Next game I want to touch on. This is an interesting market all week with the Browns and the Ravens. So the current spread and matchbook is the Browns getting 7.5. Plenty 9.5 early in the week here as well, even though we knew Deshaun's obviously done for the season. DTR wasn't going to play here, but like, is it a bad thing going to Jameis with any of those? I don't think it is. Potentially an upgrade there. Bet up as well, 45.5. Guy we backed last week, Brad, and it was a lower line last week with David Njoku. But I think this is still a very bettable one. So the bet I made here, I put it in the Telegram group on Friday night, was 60 plus receiving yards at 2.15. Now, full disclosure, we're recording this on Saturday morning. I believe this has moved just south of evens at 198, but I'm going to take the 2.15 because I put it in there on Friday afternoon, even in the Telegram group. So I'm taking that one. He got plenty of the looks last week, as I predicted that he would, and I think it's going to be even more here this week. The Ravens, I'm touching on with Kate Otton previously, notoriously poor against the tight end position, and just you can pass on them in general. He had 14 targets last week over with 3 different quarterbacks, and he got that touchdown at the end. That's his first target in the end zone. Brilliant catch. This guy is a bit of a player coming back from injury. He's a very good player. I think he'll do a bit of damage here. His reception line, I think, is 5.5, 6.5 here. And I think he'll get the 60 plus at 2.15. Ravens have allowed most yards to tight end position as well this season. So if Cade Otton can do damage, I think he nearly got to 100 yards on Monday night, albeit in a bit of a shootout kind of game where they're playing catch up. But I think the Browns are going to be playing catch up here. And if the Browns succeed here, Brad, it's by the air with Jameis getting this ball vertical.
Yeah. Jameis will chuck it up for you. I like some Brown stuff. Brown's Njoku. Who's the receiver?
This guy, Cedric
Tillman. Yeah, him.
Yeah, lovely
like him.
I didn't even tell you about that one in our notes. So 50 plus receiving yards, Cedric Tillman. That's a good plus money. I mean, there was a few guys chatting about in the Telegram group Friday. The main line, I think, is 39.5. I think you might as well pay small, get the extra pay just to go up. 10 extra yards or 50 plus receiving yards at 2.4. He's definitely a guy I'm going to look on the ladder for this week. And look, this last week was his first full game as a starter, obviously with Amari going over to Buffalo. And the target share was there. So 24% target share last week. Again, 3 different quarterbacks. Most of his damage was done, albeit with DTR, but I think he still got 5 catches from Jameis when he came in late as well. So, yeah, I like this guy. I remember watching him in Tennessee in college. He fell in the draft for a few different reasons, but I think he's potentially really good. And we might be looking back in coming weeks and saying, remember where you were getting 2.4 and then 50 plus rec yards in an offense that's going to have to pass the ball in this one. I like it. And you obviously liked it as well, man, given that you're already jumping in there.
Yeah. Pro Jameis.
Pro Jameis, yeah. Absolutely. Remember that season, 30 picks, 30 TDs with the Bucs? You got to love him. famous Jameis. Bet Builder won this week. We're going to cover him. I just covered off now. I'll put it in the Telegram group on Friday. So Cedric Tillman, 50 plus receiving yards. I've gone higher with Njoku, 70 plus receiving yards. And famous Jameis, 2 plus passing touchdowns. That's 11 to 1 or 12.0. With our good friends at Matchbook, if you bet that and it loses, and the rest of them have lost this season, we're getting very close, you get 10 quid back in free bets to play for next week. So you can keep it rolling. So you won't actually, you can place that free bet on these every time. We will win one. I can assure you of that. Famous last words and all. Speaking of Matchbook there, we'd like to have those guys on board this season. If you haven't got a Matchbook account and you want to get involved today, they have the full Bet Builder product for the NFL. You can bet these on singles as well if you just add one selection of populated price for you as well. So all these player props, use the bonus code POD50, that's POD50, bet 50 and get 50 quid in free bets as well to be betting on NFL and everything else. But the Jags coming off a big win in London last week. I think they're going to be potentially up against it this week, and they're going to be playing a bit of catch-up. And I think Evan Ingram, they're 4-point dogs at home. Evan Ingram is going to be a prime beneficiary of that. Packers are not an easy team to throw against, but I think where they do their best work in terms of the secondary is against the receivers lined out wide. And while Brian Thomas Jr.'s line, I think, is about low 60s, I think that I'm not going to say that they'll bottom up. He'll still get plenty of targets, but it's going to be easier for Lawrence to throw the ball to Ingram. Had a quiet game at Wembley last week, but I think that was script dependent. He still got 5 targets, 5 catches, and I think 36 yards. But they just ran the ball in the second half. We saw that. They didn't need to pass the ball, though. I think there was something like, was there 20-odd running plays consecutively? So I think that's why this line isn't as high as it should be. The script this week, I think they're going to have to throw the ball to keep up with Jordan Love, who's going to have a potentially good game against this Jaguars secondary. So Evan Ingram, 50-plus receiving yards and 188. The good thing about this, Brad, is I don't know if it doesn't always work this way, but these prices have all come down from, when we were doing our pod. We were going to do the pod yesterday, so I think that was like 193 yesterday, so it's down to 188 now. A Matchbook. Any thoughts on that one, Matt?
No, I think the Packers are going to score a load of points, as you say. Yep. So should be chucking the ball about.
All right, because we're on a rotational order, mate. You didn't have anything else for the early games, but you're into the late slate. The Panthers Broncos under 41.5 at Mile High at 191. I actually was looking at a Panthers team total under here, so I'm kind of on the same track as you. Broncos will be able to run the ball, a lot of clock being burned.
Yeah, I'm surprised this total doesn't begin with a 3. Like maybe it's just because it was Dalton and they've adjusted it 1.5, 2 points, which I don't know. I don't know if that's enough. So Bryce Young on our list of adjusted quarterback efficiency, which we talk about every week. There's about 55 quarterbacks on.
Oh, right. He's back this week, isn't he?
Bryce Young, yeah.
It's
Bryce Young season.
Yeah.
So there's, I don't know, let's say 50 quarterbacks on there. I don't have the number here, and he is second last. He's above Deshaun Watson, who was famously the worst. But you were talking earlier about how bad Skylar Thompson, Tim Boyle, everyone on the list is better than Bryce Young, and he goes against a defense 3rd in the NFL in DVOA. They play sticky man coverage on the outside, so he's going to have no one to throw to anyway. I think Deontay's going to miss. So he literally has no one to throw to. Xavier Legette is probably going to be his top option. They're going to send wave after wave of blitzes at him. He can't see over the top of his offensive line. Bryce is a useless dwarf is a comment that's come in. So I kind of agree with that.
Just caveat that for awful trainer as well. Sorry, small person.
Yes. He's not very good. That's the sum of that one. I can see the Panthers just struggling to move the ball at all. I don't know, 10 points or so. And then, if you think about Denver, they prefer to run the ball, slightly below average in pass rate over expectation. We know that Bo Nix is they're 26th in pass DVOA, 16th in rushing DVOA. So I think they prefer to run the ball. And then the Panthers defense, obviously last week, it looked a bit like they'd given up, but they are healthier this week. Josie Jewell, middle linebacker's back practicing. Jordan Fuller, the safety's back. DJ Wanham, the linebacker's back. Jadeveon Clowney, pass rusher, is back. So this might not be the very worst defense in the NFL. So yeah, if we think the Panthers are scoring 10, do we think the Broncos and Bo Nix are scoring 31? I don't think so.
Yeah, like the angle. I actually forgot about Bryce. I am going to be backing more Panthers team under here. I'm quite happy to do that. Javonte Williams, it's pretty similar to what you said in terms of the Denver running game. This has been backed again overnight. So 60 plus rush yards down to 175 a match, but it's only going to climb one way. A bit of a kind of a mixed bag this season, but I definitely think that there's a commitment to have him as their RB1 on the back of that game against the Saints. And the Saints are pretty woeful against the run, but the worst defense in the league against the run is the Carolina Panthers, and the script sets up nicely for them there. They want to protect Bo Nix. They're going to be ahead. Bryce Young isn't going to be getting in a shootout with Bo Nix anytime soon, nor is Bo Nix going to be in a shootout with anyone, in fairness. But I think it's going to be a heavy run and heavy rushing game here for the Broncos. And yeah, they're off the extra rest as well, a couple of days fresh from the Thursday night win over the Saints. So yeah, worst defense against the run in the league. Javonte Williams, the line to me is still a bit too low, 60 plus rush yards at 175. What's the story with Jaden Daniels? Are we got Mariota or Daniels starting quarterback for the?
I think highly likely it is Marcus Mariota, and I think
we're not impressed by him some bit last week when they did him in. Yeah, I know it's against Carolina as well.
Yeah, the Panthers were not. They're not a serious NFL team. They were not. They weren't playing hard. They weren't doing anything. They didn't prepare for him. Like last time we saw Mariota, he literally left the Falcons team, didn't he? Just like he was one of the worst quarterbacks in the league. Just left.
That was in the documentary too. Was he on the Netflix?
Yeah. Just gone. Mariota's left the team. Right. He's not good. And this is a real defense. Bears, I think they're first in drop back EPA this season. It's not been the toughest competition, but I don't think Marcus Mariota is the toughest competition. So I think you're going to get a tiny bit of value when it's confirmed that it's Mariota, not Daniels. And then we look at Caleb Williams and the offense, and pretty much every game of the year, his QBR is ticked up. It's like 24, 23, 35, 44, 82, 89. So pretty much like a nice upward trend all throughout the season, as you want to see with a rookie. Now, obviously, the last two in the 80s, it was Carolina and Jacksonville, who are terrible. But Washington defense is terrible. I think it's in the same class. They're missing Jonathan Payne, isn't it? Or they've got two in the middle in the two of the defensive tackles, and they're missing one of the good ones. It's Jonathan Payne and Jonathan Allen. Deron Payne and Jonathan Allen.
Yeah.
I might be confusing them. Anyway, they're missing one of them, and they're already 24th in defensive DVOA. So I think we can feasibly lower them a little bit more. So I think the Bears will score, and I do not think Mariota will be able to keep up against a very good Bears defense.
We railed on Cliff Kingsbury at the start of the year, but I think what he's done has been very clever. Even he's in terms of having the quarterback straight up the line. It was a bit like when Jared Goff first came to the Rams that time, wasn't it, with McVay? Don't put him back there trying to get a read on the fence. I'll do the reading for you. I still have access to your headset. I'm going to call the coverages or whatever else, defensive coverage. It is pretty clever. But I was surprised even last week that they left him in so late, McLaurin in so late. They're obviously trying to work towards this game. And the worst thing about Jaden Daniels is he takes all these hits. And if he does,
he's not a big fella.
Yeah, exactly. He's very slight when you look at him. And then when he takes it, and if it's a rib injury, he's not going to take off. So even if he does play, he's kind of at a disadvantage given that he's going to be fearful of getting a helmet into the ribs.
If he plays, I think you load up Bears. Like if he goes to pick him or something. Do you remember Herbert a couple of years back had I think similar rib injury and then tried to play against Jacksonville and they lost 31-7 as favourites. Like if you're terrified of taking hits and you are scared of moving, Well, that's what he's good at. Because I remember that Ravens game to Daniels. He's getting walloped at the goal line,
Yeah.
and like, yeah, it's not sustainable. Given
It's not sustainable. Look at RG3 that time as well. It's the same stuff. It isn't
sustainable. Yeah, so I think they will protect him, but if they do play him because they're maniacs, then I think it's a pile on. Well, sustainably.
Other games this week, man. Probably one of the later ones as well. The Chiefs at the Raiders. Chiefs are laying 9.5, so 41 is the total, which is a regular thing. But the Chiefs don't be covering too many 9.5s either at different points. But a bit of a revenge factor here with Kermit the Frog element with Mahomes. Do tell for those who aren't in the loop with what the Raiders have been up to.
Well, I think it was in training camp. They had a little puppet of Kermit the Frog talking, saying Mahomes sounds like Kermit the Frog, and they had him saying something stupid like, "I'm a loser." I can't remember exactly what it was, but they asked Mahomes about it, and he was like, "It will get dealt with when it gets dealt with," basically. And then so obviously, I think they will be focused for that because Mahomes, he's a bit like Jordan or someone, they love finding something to hold a grudge against, don't they? Because they're so used to winning, they're like,
something to do.
Something like, right, this is why we need to smash them. And the last football game the Chiefs lost was the Raiders at Christmas. So I don't think they're going to be overlooking them, as you might assume. And then obviously, if the Chiefs are trying to win this game, they're going to win this game. So if you want to chuck the Chiefs 1.24, 1.23, or whatever they are in your parlays, or just bet them straight, I don't think that's bad.
Because, like you're talking about the revenge angle, the way the Chiefs are playing, they're playing within themselves because the defense has just been so good that they just don't. You remember back like 4 or 5 years ago when that defense was the best it would be middle of the road come playoff times, and Spagnuolo would do enough. But it was such a fun watch because you had Tyreek there and they were playing catch up, and we were always betting the Chiefs in play even if they're down 14 heading into the fourth quarter, which is the fun one. But they just don't need to be. Get vertical. They can just run the ball. Offensive line is very strong. They play good defense. And you know that later in the season, and when it comes to playoffs, if they need to play a bit of catch up, then Mahomes can still do it. He'll still find a way. But they've just been, they've not been flash, but they're just very, very effective. They're just really, really hard to beat.
What I like about this Chiefs defense, they're third in defensive DVOA, fourth, but they have faced the third hardest schedule. And I've long thought that DVOA doesn't adjust enough for schedule on defense, so they're arguably even better than the fourth best defense. And against what are the Raiders throwing at you? Is it Aiden O'Connell? Well, we're back to Gardner Minshew now, aren't we?
Back to Minshew,
back to Minshew again. He's like in the bottom 10 on my adjusted quarterback efficiency, and now he's throwing to Brock Bowers and nobody else. So I just don't think that's going to be a problem for the Chiefs.
I was watching. I bet. Obviously, I had Bowers 60 plus last week, and I played a few ladders. Did the 100 plus. I think I landed at 96, and those last 1 or 2 drives are just excruciating. Where Minshew he's just no good. So that's the perils of playing these wide receivers. You're going to have, or even tight ends. You have to have a good quarterback as well. All right, man. Let's do a bit of a bet recap. When we get out of Dodge, we have the best bets. You're like running down the slate. Tyreek Hill, anytime touchdown score 205. On National Tight Ends Day, I've gone heavy with tight ends. And the first of those, K-Dot and 45 plus receiving yards for the Bucs against the Falcons. My old pal, David Njoku, 60 plus receiving yards, good price at 2.15. Also, in that one, Cedric Tillman, Amari Cooper, -2. His replacement, 50 plus receiving yards, 2.4. Nice price there. Evan Ingram, Jaguars tight end, 50 plus receiving yards, and 188 as well. On to the later state of games. Brad likes the Panthers and Broncos under 41.5. Bryce Young is back. Back your Panther unders. Javonte Williams for me, 60 plus rush yards. Denver Broncos in the same game, running back 175. And we just talked about it there. Brad has the Bears to beat the Commanders at 171. All right, champ. We've been on a decent run. I've been on a good run, three in a row after like 4 losses. So I want to get back to 500 this week. What are you going as your best bet this week, man? You on mute? Lost your audio.
Sorry, I'm on mute. Yeah, let's do the Panthers unders in Bryce Young we trust.
In Bryce Young we trust, yeah, and with an assist from Bo Nix as well, and it just strikes me as a 2010 kind of game. at best. Really, yeah. All right, love it. I've already tipped my hat there and I put it into Telegram groups as well. David Njoku's 60 plus receiving yards at 2.15. We'll have the Telegram group in that link. I've only mentioned about 5 times, but it's a good spot. It's in the link of the bio. And also, if you're enjoying the content, please, as ever, say nice things, give us reviews. I think we have 24 on Spotify. We want a few more of those, Brad. So, yeah. Let's play the outro music and get out of Dodge. Best of luck, fella. Best of luck, guys.